Hey you guys, I'm currently in the library, so I'm gonna try to talk as loud as I can, but not too loud for people to come up here and tell me to be quiet. It's been a minute ever since I've been on here recording the video, so I do apologize for my absence. However, I really just been taking a lot of time for myself, and I think a lot of stuff has been happening kind of quick. So like me getting a job and being busy with that, but also me trying to find my own groove of things as far as my routine is concerned. So kind of doing things that will allow me to not only have like a good work-life balance, but also have some me time. And I'm moving into a different apartment, so yeah, there's a lot of changes going on. I have an art event in February, so I've been working on my artwork as well. So a lot of great changes are transpiring, so I'm really excited about that. But hopefully y'all can hear me quite well. I don't want to spend too much time. So let's get started. So the question that I asked the oracle today is how to coexist with your ego. And I feel like that's such an important question because, you know, like I did the previous video, how do we coexist with our shadow side? Like, so using our shadow for energy and to be more assertive and get things done in our life. And you know, your shadow has a lot of this energy that it wants to exercise. So it's important to kind of transmute that energy into something positive. So our ego as well. Y'all know our ego is kind of exists in this fear-based mindset. It's people-pleasing. It's scared. Sometimes it feels lonely. Our ego can be very self-centered. It can be arrogant. Sometimes we can be an asshole. Like, our ego consists of a lot of things, but I don't want to necessarily sit here and say that our ego is fully bad. Now, whatever your definition of ego is, that's completely fine. But I feel like our ego can be used for something good, just like every other part of us. Our shadow, our ego, all of that is like something that we shouldn't disregard and move to the back burner. Something that we should tap into a lot more, and it really will benefit us though, as a people as whole. So, and I'm kind of want to go into like us accepting ourselves as who we are, instead of allowing people to tell us who we are and what we can and cannot do. Like, that's our ego, like, who's codependent on that type of like advice and those opinions of other people. But it's like, how can we make our ego work for ourselves, you know? Because again, at the end of the day, your temple, your ego, just inner child, higher self, shadow, y'all all are ecosystem. So what you're not doing for one, you're not doing for all of them. So it's important to come into alignment with each and every aspect of yourself so you can be the better version of yourself. But so you can also be an example or inspiration to other people. That is very possible to coexist with the different aspects of yourself. And it's not to say anybody got multiple personalities. It's more like your energy. Sometimes our energy can be split in 4 different ways. You know, each and every aspect of ourselves, the energy is different. So it's important for us to be able to transmute, but also control that energy in a way that it works for us and not work against us. So hopefully that makes sense. But y'all, we have a lot of changing lines to the point where we kind of walk away from the influence of the first hexagram, and then we're kind of getting closer to the second one. So the stars that I put next to the numbers are the changing lines. So the second one is your heart's perception, third is the transition, 5 is the clear vision, and 6 is basically the action, like what comes next. So I'm really excited. So let's just get started. I'm trying to figure out if somebody like can hear me. Oh, they probably can. So the first one is y'all's first hexagram was called gradual progress. So how can we coexist with our ego? Bonds develop gradually, organically, as raw emotional energies are channeled into lasting partnership. We grow into life possibilities and evolve in our relationships. This yields results gradually, provided you have the patience to stay loyal to the destination as the journey unfolds. What's evolving here, and how can we be more patient? So it's like, what's evolving here? We are humans who continuously will evolve over the course of our lifetime, and our purpose will continually develop right before our eyes. Sometimes things happen as it should and not as we want it to be, which is actually a really great thing. Because recently I just came to a certain realization that the course of events that transpired over the, this year, last year, and a couple years before that actually happened for a reason for me to end up where I am now. So to having that epiphany or that realization was actually kind of crazy. But it says the bonds develop gradually. So think of the bonds that you have with self. Like, it will develop gradually because we kind of coexist in a world where certain aspects of ourselves are more highlighted than others. So for example, a lot of people that you will come across reacts out of ego. So a fear-based mindset, they're closed-minded. They're very I don't know what the word for it, like a strict tunnel vision. They don't see anything else outside of their own bubble, their own circle. And sometimes that can be detrimental because it's very important for us to open up our mind to this world, because it offers us so many opportunities to connect with other people, but also to connect with ourselves. And it's hard for people to do that because it's fear-based. They're scared. So when you operate out of ego, you're scared to really go outside of the limitations that you have placed upon yourself. So that's why it's important to have a bond with yourself, but also to know that it develops gradually over time. So it's not just going to happen overnight. And then it says we grow into life's possibilities involved in our relationship. So once you continue to have that bond with self, continue to gradually build a relationship with yourself, then you will continue to grow into life possibilities. So instead of being closed-minded, you will actually be more open to the possibilities and the opportunities that are surrounding you. Because it's hard for you to see these opportunities when you have blinders on, when you can't see anything else, but also when you refuse to see anything else. So that's like a mindset thing, a fear-based thing. Sometimes people will judge you because they're projecting their fear onto you, because they are scared to actually explore something other than their belief system that's been projected onto them when they were a child or an adult. So it's very important for us to continue to gradually open our mind to new things so we can coexist with life's possibilities. And of course, this year's results gradually, so little by little, you will start to be a little bit more open-minded. You'll start to be able to have a connection with yourself. You won't be fear. You won't react to the world. Instead, you will respond from a higher place, but also a place that serves you. Because sometimes we put ourselves in compromising situations. We compromise our own energy just to meet people where they're at, just because sometimes people piss us off, or sometimes we have to get there with people. But at the end of the day, a lot of these are avoidable. A lot of these, some of these people, we are too scared to walk away from them, walk away from that old narrative, because our ego is involved, our ego is attached to it. So it's kind of like coming to unison with your soul's mind and your ego's mind. So coexisting as one. But in reality, a lot of people are disconnected from their soul's mind. They only operate out of their ego's mind, which causes them to be closed off and closed-minded, but also operate out of this fear-based mindset. So that's why it's important for us to understand that this yields results gradually over time, little by little. Remember, growth is not linear. It kind of goes in a circle. Sometimes it's all over the place. Sometimes you get a little confused or maybe even exhausted. However, growth is growth. Progress is progress. Even when you feel like you're not moving, you are still growing. You are still learning something from that, especially if you choose to see that. So if you don't choose to see that, then you're going to feel stuck. Then you're going to convince yourself that you're not moving, you're not growing. But when you open your mind to the possibilities of how healing can really move you into that, move you into a mindset of, I am connected with self, I am self, I am an extension of source, I am a divine multi-dimensional being, I'm human, I'm a teacher, but I'm also a student. Once you start to connect and flow with that, it will gradually start to unfold right in front of your eyes, and you won't be questioning a whole bunch of stuff. So let's go. I feel like this reading is going to be a little long because I ain't been on here in a minute. Okay. So remember, that was card 53. In 53, we have those lines that I have to read. I'm going to read this little passage. Gradual progress is the name of an ancient river. It shows how water flows gradually and soaks through. The long ceremony preparations for a woman's marriage progress just as surely and gradually towards the moment when the bride could come home to her husband's house and begin the stage of their journey. And the moving lines of the hexagram tell the story of the wild geese who mate for life as they fly ever higher on their way home. Bonds develop gradually. Okay, I'm not gonna read that because I just read that to y'all. Okay. And I also want to point out, if you have the patience to stay loyal to the destination as the journey unfolds. So it's like staying loyal to the destination, but also being in the present moment when you're on the journey, because sometimes we tend to want to focus on the destination, especially for my people who's been on their healing journey. We want to focus so much on the destination because we feel like what's at the end of this rainbow. However, we need to be in the present moment. Like, we need to be in the in-between. So we need to experience that for ourselves and be loyal to that. Because if you're not, then that means you're operating out of ego and you're not coexisting. Okay, so we had changing line number 2. This is not a permanent place to stay, but it's a secure enough for now, and it provides the opportunity to rest and replenish your reserves for the journey ahead. This is a moment to enjoy. You can take pleasure in having enough and being and sharing with other people. You can also use the time to reorient yourself, getting a sense of where you are and what home feels like, connecting with your inner guidance, and discovering where you would go next. This is the beginning of a more lasting security. So remember, number 2 is heart's perception. That's the changing line. So like, as we coexist with our ego, this is what's changing, the perception. So, which is important because this is not a permanent place to stay. So, for example, that has everything to do with your perception. Like I said, like sometimes we feel stuck and stagnant, but it's like we have to put in our mind that this is not a permanent stop for me. This is just like a pit stop for my destination or for where I'm going. Sometimes we need to rest. Sometimes we need to take a moment to listen to our inner guidance and discover where you could go next. Sometimes we can go to many places. Our journey is not just one path ahead. Sometimes it splits off. But at the end of the day, it still gradually leads you to that one destination that you're meant to be going to. And it says this is not a permanent place to stay, but it's secure enough for now. So like, depending on your mindset, if you're acting out of ego, then that means you're not coexisting with your ego. You're allowing your ego to control you, but you're also allowing it to control your perception. So that means that you're going to be reacting to the world around you instead of responding to it. That means that you won't be able to see the opportunities. You won't be able to have your inner guidance and discover where you could go next. Like, and you also won't be able to have time for self-reflection because you're too busy being closed-minded and operating out of fear-based mindset and scared that things won't work out and this always happened to me and blah, blah, blah. And I can resonate with that because I think that all the time. I always think that sometimes when that shoe drops, just that one moment that everything is just done for, that it's not working out for me, but in reality, it is. So remember that this is not a permanent place, so it's all about your perception. And your heart is involved in it because sometimes we have to have that healthy balance of mind over heart or heart over mind. Sometimes people choose to operate out of their heart. Sometimes people choose to be more practical and operate out of their mind. But however, that's how you coexist with self, is to have that healthy balance of both. So your mind is basically your masculine energy and your heart is basically your divine feminine energy. So it's important to balance the two so you can understand what life is teaching you about yourself and not trying to throw things at you to push you back. So again, remember, heart's perceptions are based off of how you perceive this place that you're at and where you are and what home feels like. So remember, home is not a physical place, but it's a place within self, your inner guidance. So it's important for you to have a perception of love and learning about yourself, developing gradually, connecting with self. Okay, so the other one is 3. So 3 is transition. Ooh. The high plateau is a strange new place, cold, bleak, and exposed. It's so far outside the known patterns of relationship and mutual help that we do not know how to live together here. Partnership comes under terrible strain and tends to break down. The protector cannot protect. The image is of a man called away to military service. The nurturer cannot nurture. No one meets their obligations. You need to take a long view right across the open plateau so you can truly see other people, receive and protect them, so you can best guard your home by warding off forces of selfishness, the often violent impulse to meet one's own needs alone, as if there were no relationships to be honored. One more. Okay, I am back. I had to use the restroom really bad. Okay, I was at 53. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Okay. So it's basically saying, okay. So number 3 was transition. So what are we transitioning out of? So if we're trying to coexist with our ego, how can we transition out of a place of uncertainty? Because that's where our ego operates. It's uncertain about a lot of things. So it says you need to take a long view right across the open plateau so you can truly see other people, receive and protect them. So it's like when you're operating out of ego, a lot of times you're closed off. And a lot of the times we put ourselves in these situations with people that no longer serves us or don't really serve us to begin with, but we do it anyway out of fear, because fear attracts fear. Hurt people, so you're going to attract like-minded individuals into your energy that resonates with your energy at that moment in time. So it's like you are attracting these people who's going to keep you in this mindset of a fear-based mentality, codependent, people-pleasing, like just a lot of things that in the end, it's not going to make you feel any better. It's like that temporary feeling that people like to chase when they're in love, when they think they're in love, or when they keep saying, like, there's a void within me and I need somebody to complete me, like that whole narrative, you know? So it's like you're not without, but you're within. But when you're operating the ego, when you're not able to coexist with your ego, you allow your ego to control that narrative. So you're going to move forward in life thinking that you are a void, or you have so you need someone to complete that. So it's like having a healthy relationship with yourself. So for example, it says, so far at the non-pattern relationship and mutual help that we do not know how to live together here. So it's like when you're not coexisting with your ego, every aspect of you will not be able to learn how to coexist with one another. So your shadow, higher self, inner child, like all of you will not know how to coexist with one another. It's like y'all are in one big relationship and everyone's needs can be met simultaneously. However, when you're disconnected from your ego, you're disconnected from all. So remember about the ecosystem. If you're not doing something for one of them, you're not doing for all of them. So the partnership comes under terrible strain and tends to break down. The protector cannot protect. So like your shadow self cannot protect you. Your inner child cannot have fun and be connected with your hearts in a place. Your higher self cannot actually give you guidance or clarity or anything because you're disconnected, and your ego won't be able to actually your ego won't be able to actually connect with your soul's mind. So it's like your ego's like that connector, if that makes any sense. So because everybody operates out of ego, right? It's kind of when you come into this world, a lot of us operate out of ego because that's a normal thing, right? So it's like your ego is that connection between the soul's mind. It's like your ego is like this big power cord, or like the extension cord, and everything plugs into it to connect to the soul mind. So also think about it that way. So if your ego is not working, then how can, especially if it's an extension cord, for example, if it's dead or the connection is bad, then every aspect of yourself is not connected. So it's like establishing a healthy relationship. So your ego is basically there to connect with people. And when it's not connecting, then there's no partnership. There's no mutual agreement. There's no being able to see truly see other people, receive and protect them. You can best guard your home by warding off forces of selfishness. So your ego is also selfish, but it's like, how can you protect and connect when you're being selfish? So if your ego is selfish, it's going to be like, no, I'm good. I don't want to connect with my soul's mind, which means that every other part of you, your inner child or your shadow, is not going to be able to experience what it's like to stay connected to the soul's mind. So it's like when you're disconnected, then you operate out of selfishness. The often violent impulse to meet one's own needs alone, as if there were no relationships to be honored. So it's like, again, disconnection, not being able to coexist with their ego. It's like there's no relationship to be honored. So what's the point? So why not operate out of ego? Why not react instead of respond? Why not disconnect? You know what I'm saying? Because what's the point? So when your ego is not connected, then you're not connected, and you'll feel unbalanced, and you'll know. Especially for the people that's been on this journey, you'll definitely know. But for the people who's just now starting, remember, it's gradual progress. Don't try to do everything in a week or a month or a year, because it's impossible. There's a lot of things that we can do as humans, but healing is not one of those things that you can just get 100% on by tomorrow. It's not a test. It's more like a marathon, really. So, and again, like, bonds develop gradually, organically. So it talked about the relationships to be honored. Like, you can't honor a relationship when you're not allowing it to flow, when you're not allowing it to grow organically as it should. Ooh. It's probably gonna fall again. That's annoying. Okay. So that was transition. So how can we transition out of the strange place? So again, remember, think of your ego as a connector. So that's how you can transition out of a place that you feel like doesn't allow you to connect with self, doesn't allow you to coexist. So get out of that place where it just doesn't work for you. If it just doesn't work for you, you feel disconnected, then kind of you have to be action oriented and tell yourself, like, this is not working for me. This no longer fits with my narrative. But what does? So ask yourself these questions. Also remember, it's a gradual progress. So let's move on to the number 5, clear vision. So again, the one of the changing lines was clear vision, which was number 5, and that was for the first one. Y'all, we not even halfway done with this reading. That's how I knew this reading was gonna be a lot. Okay, but it's a good thing though, because we're learning how to coexist with our ego. So number 5 is the ancestors are the foundation, the original deep-rooted energy of home. It's time to establish where you stand, reconnecting with a source that will sustain you. Look, remember, connecting is like your ego is the connection to the soul's mind. It says your source that will sustain you, especially now your progress seems to be halted. With all the hope and preparation coming to nothing, but this needs not be dramatized as a disaster. It is just a long delay before potential is realized. Gradual progress has unstoppable momentum. Wild geese gradually progress to the ancestral grave mounds. So listen, gradual progress has an unstoppable momentum. What did I say at first? Like, sometimes our ego can make us believe that we're stagnant, we're stuck, nothing's ever going to happen. It's like this fear-based mindset. It's controlled by other people's image of us, or the perceptions, or even just their opinions. And it's like gradual progress has unstoppable momentum. So don't allow your ego to trick you into thinking that I'm stagnant, I'm stuck, I'll never be able to move. In reality, you are moving. It's gradual progress. Even when you feel stagnated on your journey, that's still progress. Because sometimes we need to take a stop and really take ourselves out of the equation and look at it, the bigger picture, as to why everything's unfolding the way that it is. But again, your ego will prevent you from believing that you are progressing. So that's not coexisting, that's allowing your ego to control your narrative. And look, number 5, again, I'm gonna go back to this. Number 5 is clear vision. Clear vision. So remember, perception. So remember, your heart's perception, your clear vision coexist with one another. it thinks it has the same type of mind. So your heart and your mind is thinking like, if I'm not connected with my heart, then that means I'm disconnected. And your heart is like, if I'm not connected to the mind or every other aspect of myself, then it's chaos and it's a disaster. So it's like, this need not to be dramatized. So sometimes our ego can make us think that, it's all hell on earth or it's all bad, when in reality sometimes we can be little drama kings and queens or whatever you resonate with it. Like, it's just like we can dramatize things and make them a lot worse than it really is. So remember that fear-based mindset. So it's like having a clear vision and understanding that gradual progress has unstoppable momentum. Like, this is like, it's just a long delay before your potential is being realized. So it's like your ego, again, can make you believe that nothing's happening, but in reality it is. So you need to trust it, that you need to stay loyal to yourself and to your destination. Remember, it says stay loyal. Stay loyal to the destination as the journey unfolds. So it's gradually unfolding, and you have to stay loyal to it. It says, especially now your progress seems, look at the word seems. You know the difference between a fact and like just an opinion or an observation or whatever. It's like, this seems to not be going well. Like, it seems, but it's not an actual fact. So if it's not a fact, then why are we putting that stress upon ourselves? Why are we saying, oh, this seems to not be going well? In reality, it is. Gradual progress has unstoppable momentum. And I'm not going to say it no more. And the ancestors are the foundation. So this also is letting y'all know to connect with y'all ancestors. But also know that your ancestors are always there for you. Look, whenever you need them. But again, show gratitude. Show gratitude. Connect with them and ask them, how can I show gratitude to you? Like, how can we connect? How can we communicate with one another? And they will definitely show you the way. Like, the wild geese gradually progress to the ancestral lines. It's like, you're slowly but surely, you're on this journey that's not only helping your own lineage, but helping the lineage that came before you, because they probably didn't have the opportunity to be on a healing journey, or they probably just didn't realize it. But now they're here to assist us. The original deep-rooted energy of home. So what is home to you? So remember, it's not a physical place, but a spiritual, mental place that you can call home, that you can connect to. And sometimes when you're not connecting to that, you're going to feel unstable. You're going to feel like you're being stagnant. Nothing's working out for you. So again, have clear vision. And let me try to put this here. Let me put this there. Okay, and the last one is what comes next. So number 6 is what comes next. So we talked about your heart perception. Change, like, sometimes that our perception of things is a lot, especially when you're not coexisting with your ego, it's not as helpful as we like it to be. But how can we transition out of that? And so once we start to transition out of that, then we start to have clear vision. Once we have clear vision, that's when the action comes. It follows behind it. So what's going to come next? So number 6, it's hard to climb such a high altitude, harder still to live in this cold, thin air. You cannot make an ordinary home here or seek the kind of domestic, practical success you have imagined. Instead, you will need to conceive of a different kind of attainment and value. The journey of the geese is drawing to its close. They vanish over the horizon, leaving a few feathers drifting down behind them. You are left with a gift to keep as part of your life, a symbol, a connection to something higher. The beginning of an imaginative transformation. Now that the story is over, you are no longer living chapter by chapter. It is time to learn to dance its whole meaning. So it's like, what comes next after that? It's like, it's hard to climb such a high altitude, harder to still live in this cold, thin air. So it's like, it's letting you know, like, what's going to come next after you have this clear vision. When you realize that making things a lot worse than it is, existing in a fear-based mindset, it's like, it's no longer resonating with you, doesn't no longer fits the bill. So it's like, it's hard to climb such a high altitude. So it's hard to exist here. It's hard to breathe in this altitude because it no longer resonates with who you are. So think about the relationships in your life. Think about family dynamics. Think about not having any boundaries. Think about existing, allowing your ego to control your whole narrative. You can no longer exist in that mindset, that space, because there's no room for you to grow there. So it's like the journey of the geese is drawing to its close. It's like what's come next is the transformation. Like you're coming out of this mindset where you're allowing your ego to control you, who you are, your story, the chapter that you exist in. Like you are starting to come out of that mindset. You are starting to, and it says they vanish over the horizon. So it's like gradually progressing towards the destination because you stay loyal, right? So that's what comes next after this clear vision. And it says now that the story is over, you're no longer living it chapter by chapter. So it's like you're no longer waiting for that shoe to drop. You're not the winner, but you're now the champion. You're running a marathon. You're not sitting there saying, okay, let me count my milestones. Let me count this. Let me count that. It's more like when you're trying to take a tally of the wrongdoings and the right doings. It's like you're living in ego because it's fear-based. It's like for me, example, sometimes when good things happen, I'm thinking, oh, something bad must happen next. Let me get prepared. Let me write that down. In reality, that's not living. It's not coexisting with myself. That's not me loving myself, but that's me counting the days or trying to allowing my ego to control my narrative and my heart's perception. That's not me living, but that's me surviving. So it's like, well, chapter by chapter is survival mode. So your ego is always going to be in survival mode. It's always going to want to be on the go. It's always going to want to make sure, how can we get the most money out of this? How can we do this? How can we do that? How can we survive? When in reality, when you're too busy surviving, you're not living in the present moment. So now it's time to learn to dance its whole meaning. So understand the meaning of everything. So even if you have clear vision, what comes next is acceptance, understanding everything that's happening as it should and not as we want it to be. Sometimes we have these wants and I want this and I want that, but the divine will deliver to us at our front doors what we need. And what we need to learn is how to coexist with our ego, how to use that fear-based mindset and transmute into something a lot better, right? So how can we do that? And we can do that by that next card. So let's go to number 7, the Army. I'm going to be creating another podcast soon. I think I may take a little break until January because I'm still doing my paintings and stuff, and sometimes I feel like I am stretched a little thin, but that's my perception. And in reality, I'm just not. Sometimes we put this pressure on ourselves, and I can relate that 100%. So again, this is card number 7. So what comes next? So this is what comes next, the Army. Okay, it says, just because something isn't the goal doesn't make it the enemy. Balance the focus and an intense drive to get it done with a measured, disciplined approach. This will allow you to achieve your objective effectively and with less collateral damage. Good fortune without mistake. What are you aiming for? How can you get more from your strengths? So remember the last card talked about staying loyal to your journey. Like gradual progress is unstoppable momentum. So like just because something isn't the goal doesn't make it the enemy. So basically what they're saying is just because you come across something on your journey and it's like a pit stop, although it's not a permanent place, it's a pit stop, it doesn't make it your enemy if something is not, you feel like it's something's not working out for you. And I say you feel because your ego is involved. So your ego controls that narrative. So don't allow your ego to sit there and say, oh, this is not for us, so that means that we're not going the right direction, so that just means that everything is all bad. In reality, just because that pit stop is not your goal destination does not make it not true, does not make it, it doesn't mean that you're not going where you need to be. It doesn't mean that you're not on the same journey, that it doesn't mean that you got lost or diverted from your path or the destination that you're trying to reach. Not everything's the enemy. So remember, your ego always thinks someone is trying to attack you. It's like, so that causes us to be closed off, that causes us to be defensive in this fear-based mindset. If you think everything is the enemy just because you feel like it's not the ultimate goal, then that means you're allowing your ego to control you. balance the focus and the intense drive to get it done. So remember, you are running a marathon. Your healing is a marathon. It's not just an end goal or chapter by chapter. You're living, not surviving. So when you're survival mode, you think something or everything is the enemy, because it's like you have to survive this. I have to be able to exist outside of what's being presented in front of me. And that's not living, that's surviving, because you're too busy doing that and not actually meeting other people or connecting with like-minded individuals that's actually meant to be in your life, that really wants to see you thrive and grow. So it says balance that. Remember, balance your mind and your heart, your divine masculine, your divine feminine energy, right? And it says this will allow you to achieve your objective. So it'll allow you to achieve the goals, the milestones, or whatever that you have placed before yourself. It'll allow you to achieve them, but your ego is not necessarily going to be controlling that narrative. You're going to coexist with your ego, not exist with ego, coexist. Because your soul mind is going to be connected. So remember, your ego is the connection to the soul mind. So your shadow self and your inner child can be connected. So it's like, so think about it this way. You have your soul mind, then you have like a group of your shadow, your inner child, and your ego. So it's like your soul mind has came into this world to connect with those three parts of yourself. And it found out that the ego is the gatekeeper for all of this, right? So the ego is like, your soul mind is like, hey, I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to connect. And then the ego is like, no, I'm not letting you connect with us. And the soul mind is basically saying, like, why? Like, why can I connect with y'all? Like, what's going on? Like, I thought this is the agreement. But then it's just like, your soul mind is not finna argue or react to the ego. It's finna respond. It's letting the ego know, like, I'm here. I came for peace. I came from love, unconditional love. I want to connect. But the ego is constantly, like, fighting against it because it's scared. Because it's something that's not familiar with. So it's in that survival mode. So it's something outside of itself that it doesn't understand. So it's like, no, you cannot connect with us. But little gradual progress. So little by little, the soul's mind is going to continue to, like, but gently continue to push just a little bit and say, it's okay, let's get you out of your comfort zone. Like, I'm not here to hurt you. Like, we are coexisting in the same temple. There's no way I'm here to hurt you. So it's like they go back and forth, but little by little, your ego is starting to learn how to coexist with every other part of yourself. So it's now allowing your soul's mind to connect. So it's like, this will allow you to achieve your objective. So remember, when you're coexisting with your ego, that means you are able to achieve the objectives that you have for yourself that actually resonates with you. But if not, if you're allowing your ego, again, if you're allowing your ego to control you, then you're disconnected. So what are you aiming for? Ask yourself, what are you trying to get out of this? What is your intention behind allowing your ego to control you? Because if your intention is fear-based, then that means that it doesn't come from a genuine place. It comes from a place where it's always trying to survive and then it's scared. And again, that's not going to work out for you, especially if you're in this journey. So let's just go to number 7. It says, where there is cause, the ruler raises an army. This is time when everything revolves around a central objective. Inner and outer resources are realigned in order in accordance with it. Y'all can't see that real good. Well, it says, in accordance with it, it's important that a mature leader takes responsibility, not least so that intensity of focus does not become blinkered vision or pure belligerence, turning everything that is not the goal into the enemy. So again, your ego does this. It loses its focus. It doesn't have a clear vision. So everything is the enemy. Everything, you need to survive it. You need to fight against it. You need to be scared of it. So you're in defense mode. Balancing the drive to get it done with a measured, disciplined approach allows you to achieve your objective effectively. So think about that as your soul's mind. It wants to balance everything. It wants to get it done, but also in a way that serves all of us. Because every obstacle that comes in our way, we're going to have to deal with those tower moments. We're going to have to deal with those dark nights of the souls. You're going to have to deal with it. But there's a way to deal with it. There's a way to respond to these things that once felt like it controlled us. And with let's go out good fortune without mistake. Okay. So this one right here is So this one is, oh, this damn book, it was still basically new. So this is line number 2. So the mature, and remember, line 2 is, I'm gonna have to show y'all this every time, heart perception. The mature person of the oracle becomes the leader, bringing good fortune, no mistake. He doesn't supervise from a distance. He moves to the front lines, the midst of action, where he is well placed to sense what is needed. And this is why the king sends him a mandate or orders. Put yourself in the central position, consent to the responsibility, and the mandate will come in a way. It is simply the outward sign of an inner agreement you have already made. Look, it is simply an outward sign of an inner agreement you already made. So when you incarnated here as a soul, y'all agreed to this life. Y'all agreed to everything that's going to happen. I know some people don't want to believe that, but it's true. Or it's my truth. I don't want to put that on y'all. And it says that the mandate comes not once to this receptive leader, but remember, the receptive leader is your soul's mind, but 3 times. Look, the mandate comes not once to this receptive leader, but 3 times. Remember, sometimes when I'm reading this, I try to interpret it the way it makes sense to myself. So if y'all feel like there's another message in here, definitely take what resonates. But it says, but 3 times. The strategy or the plans may need to change. Don't assume that you have in mind to do now will be the final word on the matter. This goes beyond our existing knowledge. So again, this is heart's perception. So it's like your heart views, it's like your heart is viewing your everything from bird's eye point of view. Sometimes your heart can be sometimes your heart perception can be misguided by your ego or your shadow, but it's just like your heart's perception is starting to transmute into something that will allow it to have a central position in everything. So instead of being swayed to one side, it's going to be kind of in the middle. So your heart perception is going to start to be able to resonate with everything around it. So like the choices that you make. So it's like sometimes it's mind over heart, but in reality it's that balance that the soul mind is trying to seek. It's trying to get the mind and the heart on the same page. So again, your soul is the receptive leader. It's the mature person that's trying to come in, not necessarily dictate, but it's trying to be receptive to everything that comes with our temple. So it's trying to be receptive to the shadow, trying to be receptive to the inner child, and especially the ego, since the ego is basically trying to act like the gatekeeper. So it's like, how can I be receptive to each and one of y'all? How can I connect? Especially if you are unbalanced. How can I send you messages? How can I give you guidance and clarity when I'm not able to actually get in? So again, your ego is transitioning into like a mindset of, okay, I don't have to be defensive. I don't have to be on survival mode because it gives me anxiety and stress. But what I can do is allow this receptive leader to lead us all, so it can influence us all to be leaders and to connect with one another. Look, it says he doesn't supervise from a distance. He moves to the front lines. So it's like your soul's mind is always going to be the one taking that risk. But it also wants each and every one of us, like every aspect of us, to be on the front lines, to say that there's nobody going to be left behind, that we are an army, we're a family, we're an ecosystem, and we operate as one. And this is why the king sends him a mandate or orders. It's like, so this is why, like, think of the king as the source. The source is sending your soul's mind or your essence these orders to say, hey, let's get connected. Let's be the best version of ourselves. How can we do that? I'm going to give you mandate and orders. So when you incarnate here, that's what, I don't want to say what's expected, because it's like the source is not there to sit here and control, because we have free will. Some people choose to operate out of ego because it's their choice, but it's like they want this receptive leader, the soul's mind, to come in and to embrace and accept each and every part of you.
In 15 minutes. If you need a library card, please visit the checkout desk. If you need help finding materials, please visit the information desk. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry for that. That message that just interceded our thing. But, I like coming to the library because it's very quiet here. I know if I'm at home, sometimes I can get disturbed. and I need to like be in an environment where I can kind of control the noise. So yeah, that's why I'm in the library. But anyway, this goes beyond our existing knowledge. So like our existing knowledge, like your ego's knowledge doesn't know everything, but guess who does? Your soul's mind. That's why your soul's mind is incarnated here. Remember, you don't have a soul, you are a soul. So at the end of the day, you are unique. There's only going to be one of you exist in this at this very moment in time. It's never going to be another you replicated or duplicated in another life. So that's why it's important to know that we can coexist with our ego, and that our ego doesn't know everything, but our soul's mind knows enough to push us on this journey and to encourage us to keep moving forward. Even the times where you do feel disconnected to ego, that's okay. Sometimes we gonna get on this journey where we don't feel like we're connecting. Sometimes our heart perception can change. Sometimes a lot of circumstances can influence our heart's perception. But at the end of the day, our ego, shadow self, inner child, like all of it won't go anywhere. It's still here to serve us, but we have to learn how to transmute that energy that actually works for us so we can continue to move forward. Okay. So the next one is transition. How can we transition? So remember, line number 3 is transition. So like, what are we transitioning to? So again, it was gradual progress. Now we are moving to this phase, the army. So let me put this back right where it is. So yeah. So now that, and this is to say that if you find yourself in that first phase of having gradual progress, not understanding things, now you're moving to the phase where, okay, now I'm starting to be able to understand how to coexist with my ego. So this is the transition. The corpse used to be filled with vitality, but now they're just dead weight. The mindset, the strategy, or the emotion that used to be an aspiring source of strength is now a lifeless husk. Time to lay it to rest. Carting it with you. What is that? Carting it with you will do you real harm. So how can we transition from gradual progress of feeling stagnant, stuck, like feeling like how can we I'm gonna say transmute, transition, transmute. So this is the way we can transmute, right? To coexist. So remember, this is existing with ego and coexisting with ego. So how can we coexist when we transmute? So transmuting our mindset. Instead of reacting, we respond. So respond from a higher place. So connect with our soul's mind, or even ask it for advice and say, like, what should I do? How can I learn how to respond instead of react? The strategy we have to come up with, because we all have strategies that we go by, whether that's with going to work or our personal lives, we all have a strategy. So think about the routine that you put upon yourself. Like, is that is that what serves you right now? Does that help you connect with yourself? So what strategy can you transmute to actually coexist with your ego and the emotion? A lot of us, when we're in this fear-based mindset and when we're existing with ego, we sometimes tend to turn off our emotions, or our emotions are codependent on other people. So we have to wait for that validation from others to do what we want to do. When in reality, you control your own emotion. So when you coexist with your ego is not controlling your emotion or your narrative, but you are. And you're actually making the decisions on yourself. And again, this is not to say that, I also want to make this clear, like, if you can understand the magnitude of your decisions, you can make better decisions on your own behalf. Knowing and understanding something are two different things. So understand or overstand it. I don't know, people say different things today, but it's like, if you knew better, you do better. But it's really, if you understood better, you do better for yourself. So understanding your emotions, but also feeling your emotion. To feel is to heal. So really feeling your emotions and not allowing your emotions be dictated by some narrative or society saying that, oh, if you cry about this and this and that, like, then you're soft or you're sensitive, or stop it, like, doesn't make sense, like, why are you upset? Or just trying to compartmentalize your emotions instead of actually dealing with them. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you may have a delayed reaction and say, I need to go home until I'm able to deal with my emotions, which is completely fine. But at the end of the day, still deal with your emotions in a way that when you're dealing with your emotions, you're being understanding of your emotions instead of patronizing them or yelling at them. And remember, when you're doing that to your inner child. So when you're not connecting with your emotions, you're not connected with self. So remember, don't compartmentalize these emotions. When these emotions arise, try to understand what triggered you into that emotion, especially if it's anger or guilt or these people-pleasing tendencies or anything. Like, understand what triggered that. When you start to understand your triggers, you start to understand your emotions, and then you'll be able to control them, but from an unconditional, loving place, though. Okay, and then when it says time to lay it to rest, carting it with you will do you real harm. So again, it's just like, but it's just also like not allowing this mindset. I'm sorry, I got distracted. But anyway, so just transmuting the energy into something. I'm telling you, my mind can like really just get lost when like certain people, they talking loud, or like if I break eye contact and look at somebody, I'll start to get a little lost. But it's okay. So transmutation is letting go what no longer serves you, but also transmuting your mindset, your strategy, and your emotions. Okay, I was just reading that a little bit more. Okay, so next is clear vision, line number 5. So remember, number 5 was the clear vision as to, so when you're existing with ego, understand like how can your vision be clearer? How can your vision actually work for you instead of having a tunnel vision? How can it be clear? How can it be more open to opportunities and possibilities instead of actually thinking that these limitations placed upon me will forever be there? Remember, it's not a permanent place to stay, but it's only a pit stop. So understanding your limitations so you can transmute that into something a lot better. So our vision is now changed. So when you coexist with your ego, your clear vision is a little bit different. So there's a game for the hunt. There's an opportunity or opening or challenge, something waiting to be grasped. The stakes are real. You are in a responsible position and must engage. And yet you're surrounded by unknowns. It is no mistake to take time to discuss strategy and rather intelligence. There is an adult present to take charge, but there is also a rash, inexperienced youngster who might be unnerved by the unpredictable. He guards corpses. He will not lay the past to rest, instead clinging to his patterns almost like a talisman. But this is time for an authentic response, not to go on automatic pilot. I didn't really know how to say that, and I'm not gonna mess it up, but it's okay. So think about it this way. It says that there's an adult person present to take charge. So think about your soul mind as that adult person taking charge, and also think about the inexperienced youngster, the ego, as that person trying to hold on to the past. So it's like your ego loves to hold on to the past. You know why? Because it's comfortable doing that. Because it loves the past to repeat itself, because your ego is scared of change. So it's like there's a game for the hunt. This is an opportunity. So clear vision, this is an opportunity for you to see things from a bigger point of view, to see that in order to coexist with your ego, you have to understand that your soul's mind has done this many, many, many times before. That's why I came at peace. That's why I said, I'm here for love, light, guidance, clarity. I'm here to help y'all. But it's like your ego, that youngster, the one who thinks it's experienced, but it's inexperienced, but it's holding on to the past just because it's like, oh, I've been here, like we've done this before. Like, no, your soul mind is basically saying like, not really. This is actually your first time doing this, but you made yourself believe that the past, the things that happened to you in the past.
The library will close in 5 minutes. Please bring any items you would like to borrow to our checkout desk. Thank you.
Oh, I gotta hurry up. But things that happened in the past is like, it makes your ego think like, oh, I've done this before, like this is who I am, and blah blah. And your ego, in your mind, your soul's mind is basically like, no, this is not who you are. You don't really have that much experience, but let me help you. Let me help you respond instead of react. So it's like the ego cards corpses, so it's carrying around the dead and these burdens that no longer resonates with it. It's like you're carrying something on your back that there's no room on your back to carry these burdens for other people's or things from your past. You have to let that go. We're still carrying that around, but your soul is like, let's not do that no more. There's so many opportunities and openings out there for us to actually challenge ourselves to be a better version of ourselves, for us not to actually take advantage of that moment. So my soul's mind is trying to school your ego. Okay, the last one is what comes next. So the time for fighting is over. Now the Army's energies must be redirected into building a new world. A more open time is coming, founded on sincere relationships, and there's a profusion of tasks and challenges, all of them new. The task is no longer to pursue a known objective, but to lay the foundations for a noble future growth. There is no longer any place for aggressive responses or for people who are reactive and think small. Don't turn such people, and don't call on your inner small person. So it's basically saying like, what comes next is letting go. That the time for fighting is over. The time for surviving is over. Like the Army's energies must be redirected to building a new world. So you're too busy thinking that again, everything around you is the enemy, when in reality it's just not. So you have to start to transmute that energy into something a lot more positive. So how can we transmute this energy into building a new world for ourselves and to being open to sincere relationships? So letting go of what no longer serves us, letting go of the relationships that doesn't actually help us be a better version of ourselves. So again, the time for fighting is over. The task is no longer to pursue a known objective, but to lay the foundation of a knowable future. So again, we're always going to be walking to the unknown. That the future is not always going to be told to us, but it's like our soul mind is basically trying to let us know how. If you want to coexist with your ego, you have to learn how to lay that foundation and lay it right. And this is no time or place for aggressive responses. So there's no time for reaction, but there's a good time for response. So again, the time for fighting is no over. Let your army rest, but also let your army recuperate and say, this is now we can transmute our energy of survival mode, and to turn into something that's a lot better for us. Now we can live. Now we can put our swords down and stop fighting against each other or whoever else who think is the enemy. But again, you give your enemy power to control you. You give your enemy the power to fight against you. But when you no longer say, this no longer resonates to me, what am I fighting for? What is this war even about? Then you'll start to be able to live and build a new world for yourself. Okay, so I don't have much time left, so I'm trying to hurry up. So the last one is Sundance, self-sacrifice. So self-sacrifice. The Sundance card asks us to look at what needs to be sacrificed so that the sacredness of our lives may be restored. It could be that doubt or fear are trailing our dreams and need to be sacrificed so that dreams may live. On the other hand, if some bad habit has limited our capability, that habit needs to be conquered. Recklessness and overindulgence can thwart the abundant life we seek if we do not get rid of those parts of the self that represents our shadow. Your shadow is always ready to be sacrificed. If you have learned from dancing with the whole darkness of ignorance, you will learn... Oh, something happened to my phone. You will learn what no longer sacred in your life. Then the sacrifice becomes your truth. Sorry about that, y'all. The library did close. Yeah. Anyway, if you use less paper in order to save the rainforest, you make them sacred. In all instances, you are being asked to give up something in order to stand in the truth of your convictions. So give up allowing your ego to exist and take over who you're meant to be in the coming future, or the foreseeable future, which is having a strong connection with self, which is all of yourself. So instead of existing with your ego, coexist with your ego. Giving up aerosols, apathy, bitterness, greedy friends, or too much sugar can change the worth of your life. So, like, again, when you operate out of ego, sometimes you're going to be bitter, arrogant, selfish. You're going to have this lack mentality mindset. You're going to be sad, angry, codependent, seeking validation from other people, or even just having a bad diet. And remember, self-sacrifice is not denying your needs. So it's like, coexisting with your ego is not necessarily getting rid of your ego or disregarding it. It's more, how can we work together in order to be the better version of ourselves? But rather the self-decisions to willingness to sacrifice limitation through action. But so it's like, what it's asking us to do is really just kind of look at things from a bigger point of view. So it's like, first one was gradual progress. The second one was army. So you're gradually moving into an energy of coexisting with your ego by transmuting that energy, which means having a clearer vision, which means changing your heart's perception, which means taking action, but also means transmuting that energy into something a lot more positive that can actually work for you. And then for you to really understand that when you sacrifice an old way of being, old behavior patterns that no longer resonate with you, you're not sacrificing, a part of you that should continue to live on. You're sacrificing the part of you that no longer fits that narrative. You're sacrificing those burdens that no longer resonate with you. You're sacrificing those friend groups that no longer it's going where you're going. And when I say sacrifice, of course, don't mean like killing people off. No, I know some people out there think different things, but I mean, when you self-sacrifice, it's kind of shedding that old narrative and coming into a newer version or a better version of yourself. So that's what they mean by this. And it's going to be hard because this journey requires a lot of deep thinking. It requires a lot of hard truths that you have to come to a certain realization with. It's going to be difficult just because it's something that you're not used to doing. So of course your ego is going to fight you all that it can. It's going to fight with all of the strength that it has left. So it's like, remember, you're moving into the army where they're telling you to put down your blades and your swords and stop fighting, stop surviving, and start to live, because you're fighting an enemy that's not even there. So it's like you're basically fighting yourself. Because remember, this reality is an experience. And your first priority when you came down here is to have a human experience, which means to connect and love, laugh, have fun. But if you're too busy surviving and existing with your ego and allowing it to control your narrative, then you're not living. So, of course, hopefully this message resonated with you guys. If not, definitely check out my other videos, or even sometimes I may not be the reader for you, but what I do hope for everyone to get from my reading is clarity, guidance, healing. And that's the whole point of me in this channel. I'm so blessed to be on here talking with you guys again. Okay, take what resonates, leave the rest. I will definitely be on here again. Look out for my podcast. I'll be posting that one soon. And I may just be taking a little break afterwards. But don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.